for today. But before we get started on that, I actually wrote a little something to say about this process that I want to make very clear that while I am the one that's presenting information today, I did is go to the past presidents and ask for help. And I am delighted to tell you that with very little warning and no choice about when and what date and what time to meet, they absolutely showed up and they gave me a ton of information. And I could not have done this without their help. They spent a lot of time with me and gave me lots of resources. So yes, I saw some applause. Thank you to the XPs, as my mother always called them. So thank you, XPs. And I was going to say too, when I was a teacher, we use this term scaffolding, and the definition of the term scaffolding is that teachers provide successive levels of temporary support that help students reach higher levels of comprehension and skill acquisition that they would not be able to achieve without assistance. And I used to think, well, I still think that we used way too much jargon in education, and that was sort of a jargony BS. Oop, there's my mom popped out sort of word. But I've been thinking about that word a lot as I've been leading this league. And I actually picture a lot, the people, the leaders, the volunteers, all the people that came before our current slate of leaders, standing there on that scaffold, holding that plank so that we can go higher and get more work done and reach the top of the building. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. And also a shout out to Rita, who's kind enough to read over just about every bit of work that I do. I appreciate that. And a shout out to my brother Jim, who is kind enough to read every bit of work that I do after 10 o'clock at night, when it would be inappropriate for me to approach anyone else. And so special thank you to both of them who helped me yesterday work on all of this. So my remarks out of the way, I am going to I'm going to share my screen and we will go through. Nope, I'm forgetting. I want to welcome new members. Do we have any new members with us today? And Laura, do we have any new members who have joined this month?
We have a brand new member, Carol Boris, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. She just joined on Thursday. And when we go through our committee reports, I'll tell you about all the new members that joined last year. So having a new member the first week of January is right on track with what we had all last year.
Excellent, excellent.
And welcome to anyone who has joined us last year and is jumping on and seeing how we're kind of, working through doing things in a different way. We appreciate everybody's patience.
Yep. Yeah, so welcome all of you who joined in the last year. We're kind of doing a little bit of wrap up reporting this January too. So welcome to all our new people. I know we have several on the call today who have joined us in the past in 2021. So thank you so much for coming. All right, so I will now share my screen. I hope. There we go. And then share my. There we go. Okay, so I've got a lot of text on the screen, and sorry I didn't have a chance to jazz it up as much as I would like to. Next year, perhaps it'll be prettier. But for this year, I thought information was more important. So welcome to our program planning for 2022 to 2024. This year, we do local and national program planning. On the odd numbered years, we do state, local, and state program planning. So that's what we did last year. This year, we're doing national and local. So what is program? Well, it's what the league needs to do for education.
A what?
Sharpie, a marker.
I'm gonna have you mute, please, if you are not muted.
Next to the refrigerator.
Oh, can't wait.
Carl's gonna help you go around. Carl, can you mute everybody but me? Thank you. Okay, what is program? It's what leagues choose for education, action, and study at the local, state, and national levels. As I said, this year we're doing programming at the local level and at the national level. We make suggestions for changes. Why do we do program planning? Things change, we grow. We need to sometimes make changes. Here's an example of why we might want to make a change at the local level. This is our position. This is in our local positions for city government. And our position on city government reads that the sixth district and the 6 at-large council members create a representative government that can be responsive to the will of the majority. In talking with our past presidents the other day, it was pointed out to me that there's some talk after the redistricting commission or the redistricting process for city council, that this might not actually be the best structure for council members, that it in fact leads to less representation for communities of color to have 6 at-large council members. So there's discussion of possibly changing the city charter, that there may be a push to change this city charter. Well, we cannot speak to that because we cannot support changing the city charter. We can only oppose it because of our position on the structure of the city council. So that's the sort of thing that we might take another look at, and we might decide, yeah, somebody really wants to take ownership of this. Someone really wants to do a study, and we want to change our position so that we can then come out in support of a change in the city charter that will change the way that the council members are voted in. So that's just an example of why we do this analysis and why we go back and do this review. So what do we actually do to plan LWV programs? We decide as a local league what we want to focus on, and then we also review our positions. So we have to read over everything that all the positions that we've come up with over the years, and this is over the past 100 years. We need to review those and decide if they're okay, or do we need to update them? Do we need to propose a study to update them, or do we want to change our focus for action as well? During this process, we want to make sure that we're incorporating an emphasis on DEI. And so we want to examine our positions, our current positions, and think about how they affect a variety of communities. Think about how they affect underserved populations, populations of color, LGBTQ. There's so many people outside of, outside of white, able-bodied, cis, straight people that we need to be considering. So will we decide that today? No. The process begins today, and then it ends at our May 14th annual meeting, where we will decide what our focus is for 2022 at the local level. So what are we going to do today? We begin reviewing the LWVUS and our local positions, and we'll gather information. We'll talk about what we do next. The next step is that we will meet for discussion about those local issues. This is when we'll have a chance to review, to really look at those. Actually, you should come to those meetings prepared, having already read the positions. So after you've read the positions, both local and national, and there is a summary of the national positions. There's also a detailed list of the national positions. The detailed list is a book. So I think reading the summary of the national positions is fine. And then we'll come together in groups on January 27th. There'll be 3 meetings at 10 o'clock, at 1 o'clock, and at 7 o'clock. So there should be a meeting time that works for everybody. If you cannot attend, you can submit your suggestions and your ideas ahead of time. Actually, we'd like everybody to suggest ahead of time anyway. And then at our February Board of Directors meeting, we will review member input and decide what recommendations we want to make to the League of Women Voters US. So that's the first step, is for us to tell the national organization, this is what we want you to work on. This is what we want you to emphasize. And then we will turn that in to the national in March. And then in June at the national convention, the board of directors and there will be discussion with the delegates, and the board of directors will make some decisions about what national will emphasize and where we go at that point. By the way, just an aside, any of the XPs that I thanked earlier, if I make a mistake or mischaracterize any of these points, please feel free to jump in and correct me, because this is my first time doing this, and it's a lot to wrap your brain around. So during the discussions, we will consider the following. Which of these issues should be a focus for League, our local league and our national, for our league activities in the next few years? Are the positions still adequate? So the positions that we've taken in the past, the ones that we have in our impact on issues, are they still adequate, or do they need to be updated? Do we need a new in-depth study on one or more of those issues? And should we advocate on these issues, offer civic education programs, or create an interest group to learn more about what's needed on a particular issue? One example, both locally and nationally, that I might suggest is in our local priorities that we voted on a year ago, we did not mention women's health and access to reproductive care. And that's something, given what's happened in our country this past year, that's something that we might as a league decide we would like to promote as an issue for action. Okay, and then what is the last step in this process? So the process ends at our annual meeting on May 14th, when we will vote on the things that have been discussed. So we'll discuss them in the meetings on January 27th. The board will take the notes from that discussion, take suggestions from members, and then we'll put that into a coherent document. We'll then share it with the members, and then the members will vote to take on new studies or make changes in our advocacy plan, our action plan. So at the national level, the League, US League has recommended that we continue the program, the Campaign for Making Democracy Work. So the board has decided on this program. This is a program that's been going on, I think now for 4 years, maybe longer. So this program encourages us to work on voting rights, improving elections, money in politics, and redistricting. So when I report to when the board reports to the national organization in March, this is what they want to know about. Do we support this, continuing this campaign and this program, or do we want, first question is, do we support this program focus? Second question is, do we recommend another program item in addition to or instead of the Campaign for Making Democracy Work? So that's one of these are two questions that we will discuss at our meetings on January 27th. A review of our positions can be found here at this website. This is on our Google Drive, and it is a 6-page, I think, review. So this is the easiest way to look at our national positions. We really want you to read these before you come to the January 27th meetings. You can also read the full text of the positions. That's on our website at Impact on Issues. And I think Judy Ann has this link in the chat, but I can't actually see the chat right now. And then a review of our local positions. The summary of our local positions can be found on actually it's the full local, it's not the summary, sorry. It is the full local positions, can be found on our website under Our Work, and then the drop-down menu tab for league positions. Okay, something to think about. One thing to consider when thinking about changes you might want to see LWVKC make in the next year is that any change in position must be supported by a study, and a study has to have volunteers committed to doing the work. So at the meeting that we held the other day with the ex-presidents, the example that I gave earlier in the presentation about the city council structure was brought up. But there was also talk about someone has to be committed to take on the work of doing that study. And the study would be voted in May, and we would actually begin the study in May, although of course people could do some work ahead of time with the assumption that we would vote in that study. By the time we got finished with the study and voted to adopt or came to consensus to adopt that position, they might have already changed the city charter. It might not be something that was worth our effort, or it might be. But we have to understand before we embark on any of this work that it is work, and that we have to have people committed to actually doing the work of the study. Another thing to think about, suggestions for local action or education must be supported by a position. So that position could be at the national level, it can be at the local level, it can be at the state level. But we can't, as with the city council, we can't just decide, oh, we should have a different opinion about this, and so let's recommend something else. We can't do that as an organization. It has to be supported by a position. And if the position that we have doesn't support the action we want to take, we can't take that action. The timeline for this is that today we start, and yeah, I didn't include that, but today we start looking at everything. By January 20th, members should support program suggestions to the board. You can do that through the information submission button on our website. You have to be logged in to see that, but it is on our forms page, and it's a button that says information submission form. So, so we would like you to submit any kind of suggestions for action, suggestions for study that you'd like to make at the national or at the local level. Not the state level. We're not doing any state stuff this year, just national or local. Then we want you to attend one or more of the small group meetings to talk about this. We're gonna, you'll bring up, if you've got a suggestion for action, bring it up, see if you can get some support. If you've got an idea for a study, bring it up, see if you can get some other people who will commit to work with you on that study. And just a chance to analyze the positions that we already have. And then in March, the board of directors will submit the recommendations that we've made to League of Women Voters US. We answer those 2 questions that I showed earlier, and then 2 other questions about work that we've done. Then in early April, the board will send out a neatly compiled document with the suggestions and discussion notes from the meetings in January 27th, I mean, and we'll send those out to the members. And then on May 14th, when we have our annual meeting, we vote in new officers and new board members, and we will also then come to consensus about local program. So your homework in this process is to read over the positions for League of Women Voters US and for our local league. I'm going to read the summary for the national positions, but as we are stuck home again, as I say on the slide. So I don't know, I have a copy, I have a hard copy that might be something that I read before I go to sleep at night. And then come to 1 or more of the meetings on January 27th. Again, they'll be at 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and 7 o'clock. Please come prepared. The meetings won't last long enough for us to actually go over what all the local positions are, what the national positions are. Please come prepared and submit suggestions through the information submission button. Thank you, everyone, for all that you do. I think it's just amazing how much we get together, how much we can do together. I'm really worried about our democracy, but I think that organizations like ours can make a real difference. We can make a real difference in what happens. And one of the reasons that we're taken so seriously and that we can make that difference is because of this deliberative process where we study and we very carefully consider our positions and the action that we take. So I want to open the floor to questions. This went way faster than I thought it would. So we have plenty of time for questions and discussion. Does anyone have a question?
I have a question. This is Elizabeth Darr. Can you explain exactly what you mean by a study? I was thinking, if we want to talk about the city council, to me, a study means you have a control group and an experiment group, but that doesn't apply here. So could you explain exactly what you mean?
I can, and actually I'm gonna ask Alice if she would share. She has led one of our most recent studies, which was well, actually 2 or 3 of our most recent studies. And so I'll let you pick which one you want to talk about. But if you don't mind, Alice, can you answer that question?
Yes, if the question is, no, we don't have control groups, and no, that's not the design. The study starts out with questions and issues, and then we design a scope of work. It takes, in my experience with the 3, the TIF, tax incentive, and the affordable housing, and then the last one, paid leave, each one had started out with maybe 12 members, but we had mostly, I would say, 8 to 9 working members. And in the last case, we had a member who was an economist from UMKC, not a league member, but a very strong addition to our group. So we developed the scope of work, which is what is it we're going to study, what's the question to answer, and how do we go about it? And then each member, which makes it really good. And we've had some wonderful participation in membership. The people do take it seriously, as you said, Anne, and they've done the work. We created the citizens scorecard for tax incentives, and this is how you measure whether your proposal meets the standards that we have set. Anyway, so it's average 3 to 6 months. We meet some of you who are on here add your comments, but probably every other week. And people have been traveling while we're meeting, but they still have time on and they report what they've done. And then we have several people who write it up. And the last one was, I think, 16 pages, 3 pages of references and a question. And then we took it to the state and they said, take it to all the local leagues. And so that's what we did last year. But anyway, the process is driven by the scope of work and the timetable, and people do homework, and we try to spread it out so people get to choose what they do and what the report will look like. So they've all looked different, but they have been reported back. And when you get to the point about this National League, I think maybe if Peg's on here, we might have some thoughts about that. But that's the process. And people do need to expect to work. It's not, it's kind of like, it's short. So you don't commit forever, but you do carry a workload that is shared and time structured.
Can you tell us what one of the questions was that you had for one of those, just so we have an idea of what kind of research you're doing?
On paid leave, the question was, well, what is the need in Missouri for paid leave? Who is not participating? And so we studied the entities in the country and the states that have it and the good plans. And then we looked at Missouri in particular, and then we said, the question is, who is missing in this? And so we ended up pointing out that we need data. And so then that went to the foundations, and then the Missouri Foundation on Health in St. Louis has taken that up and contracted to get the Missouri specific data to make the case. So, and then it could be part of a citizen ballot initiative, but it's very important that we have Missouri data. And if we got lucky, we could pass it at the federal level in the Build Back Better, but that's, it's not in the federal plan. It would be ideal because then it would be federal and not Missouri specific. And we really don't want to take anything to the General Assembly because we know from past experience in our research that would be very harmful. So it would have to be a citizen-driven one, but I think some of us really believe it needs to be a good plan, not a cheapo plan, because if they got away with the cheapo plan and few people were covered, then we'd never get anything better. So.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you. Mary Lindsay, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I, and this may be out of order, but when you're talking about a local and national focus, but not a state focus this year, I mean, this year, our General Assembly has a huge amount of pre-filed, well, now filed bills that would be really destructive to voting, and one that would essentially, it would still be present, but it would just make the initiative process useless and all of that. And I defining it as state, I mean, as local or national doesn't mean we can't still work on.
Absolutely not. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for asking that question. No, we are just giving direction to our own local league, and we're giving direction to national about what we would like the focus to be. But the focus for our own local league could absolutely be to take action at the state level, to take action with regard to legislation that's going on at the state level as well as county and local. So yeah, it absolutely does not mean we have to keep our efforts local by any means. And next year, the state we will do this planning for the state. And so we're still on last year's plan at the state level. So that So we've given direction, last year we gave direction to the state about what we want the state organization to do, and we will re-examine that again next year. So no, yeah, it does not at all mean we can't take action that is at the state level. Yep.
And
Uh,
I just want to add that last year we committed to working with the statewide organization Jobs with Justice on monitoring the Citizen Ballot Initiative. And I saw that Pat Bartholomew was on here. She's been our point person going to all those meetings. And so that commitment to, observe, watch, and report back is still ongoing. Right, Pat? Are you there?
Let me unmute here. Yes, I am committed to, I've already told Richard Von Glahn, who's the policy director of the Jobs with Justice, that I will be sitting at the table. They meet weekly. And it's all about, what's going on in Jeff City. And so, yes, I've already made that commitment with the understanding that I'm representing the league at the table. So.
Thank you for that. All right, Donna, you had a question, or you had your hand up.
Yes, I would just add, as we talk about the studies, that the league prides itself in looking at both sides and trying to share, a kind of almost a pro and con issue. So when we have a good look, at them, and that's why league is trusted.
Yep. Okay, other questions? I want to add one thing too about the meetings on the 27th. And I did see in the chat that there's a conflict with the with one of the forums on the 27th. So we could certainly add a different time. Yeah. So we'll talk about that. I'll send out an email about that if we make a change about that. But I also want to add that when we meet, this is a good time, and we'll be discussing issues and positions. This is a good time to find other people who are interested in what you're interested in. A good time to interact with committee chairs and maybe find a committee that you're interested in jumping in and doing some work on. So it's a little bit of a multifaceted opportunity there on the 27th for all those meetings. Peg, did you have a question?
I did. And I know that this is a meeting that is very, I don't want to say difficult, but it's a meeting that new members in particular, it's a hard distinction between what we want to work on and make our priorities. And I think the wording of program planning is really kind of confusing, because program planning sounds like priorities and stuff. And program planning really should be maybe renamed or something behind it that would say league positions.
Mm-hmm.
Because Anne, you did a good job of explaining that this is a national and local discussion about our positions. And then Mary said something about the voting rights and stuff. What about Missouri? What about local Missouri? And that's really hard to understand when you're talking about program planning, that, hey, we really should be focusing on these things. And absolutely, Mary, you're correct. And the LWV Missouri's website would explain, and I'm a little disappointed, but I know everybody's really, really busy and it's hard to keep up on stuff, but they have their 2021 priorities, and priorities are set by boards, but with input from local leagues. And so their priorities, none of us are surprised at any of them. they talk about redistricting, they talk about election reform, they talk about reproductive rights, equal rights, national popular vote. So there's like 10 things that are important that Missouri leagues should be working at the state level. So I think those kinds of things, Mary, are really looked at, and don't think that they're going to be lost. They are not, just because we're talking about program planning, which is really looking at studies. Does that help a little?
Mhm. Yeah, but we will also, it is studies, and it's also the positions. We have to review the positions, and then it is what actions we want to take. So it's three facets.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you, Ann, since we have a little bit of time, when you were talking about reproductive rights, maybe saying something to the US, did you have, could you just expand on that just a little bit about what you're thinking?
I can't, because I
Okay.
haven't actually looked at the positions yet. I haven't done my
Got it.
homework yet. So,
Okay,
Oh,
so I will.
okay.
and may I add something to what Peg said? Because Peg was talking about positions. The word positions has been used many times this morning. For our new members, let's clarify, we are talking about the league's public policy positions. So it's confusing to new members, I know. So let's ensure they know the word position means public policy positions.
And I'm actually going to take a moment. Donna and Lorraine, I see your hands up, so I will get to you. But I want to take just a moment, because I do have our positions ready to share. So so let me just share with you. Oops. Well, I have them ready to share, but there we go. Well, it's still not showing the right thing. Let me try that one more time. We'll get this one, because I do have them ready to share. All right, we'll try this one last time. Okay, so here's an example of our program positions. So this is our local Kansas City program positions. And when I also want to point out, by the way, when I say local, it's Kansas City, Jackson, Clay, and Platte counties. We are a fairly large geographically, we're fairly large league. So we cover a whole lot of territory, and it's very important that all of those areas are served by our league, and that we consider the needs of people in all of those areas. So, for example, here in education, a local position is that we support adequate local tax levies to provide optimum education systems for the school district within the Kansas City limits. The following criteria should be used to evaluate the adequacy of proposed tax levels: retention of or improvement of the district's state classification, and competitive teacher salaries among the 12 Kansas City, Missouri districts. So then in Independence, we don't have dates for those for some reason, but in Independence, you can see that the first item, that position was adopted in 1971. So there was study done, and then we adopted that position. We sometimes update positions, and they are usually listed if it's been updated. So they'll usually list when it was adopted and then when it was updated. There are new positions. You can see that we have the tax increment financing. The study that Alice and company took on resulted in the adoption of a new position in May of 2020. And so why do we do all that? Because then we could take action based on those positions. So we want to make sure that any action that we take, there's a position to support it. And that, again, that position could be at the national level, it can be at the local level, or it can be at the state level. But we don't just, do action, take action on a whim. We're a pretty deliberate and thoughtful organization. Donna.
One of the things that we haven't said in our program planning is that another option a league has is to not retain a position. This happened on the state level several years ago when we dropped our court plan because it had been in place 40 years and there was no problem, so they voted not to retain it and all. But then all of a sudden, things came up and people were trying to make the court system partisan, more everywhere partisan, where now it has some limits. And they ended up, because it had been dropped, they had to do a quick study and they did a consensus at the state meeting. But I just bring this up because, you know, in May, we could say, although we like our 1972 study on the government, city, local government, that we could not retain the 6 and 6 position, that there are 6 districts that are at large and 6 districts that are, you know, local. We could vote not to retain that, still leave the other sections in my view, and then use a state position or DEI lens to do education around to support the task force that will be looking, we think will be looking at the council positions.
At the
Which
change
might
in charter. Mhm.
allow us to not have to do a study. I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. And so that's some of the meat for our discussions on the 27th. Yep. Lorraine, you have your hand up.
Hello, I'm a relatively new member. And this may be a little off what you're talking about, but the one thing that I'm most concerned about is if there's any way we can fight back against disinformation. And I'm particularly upset about the meeting in the Capitol this past week where Douglas Frank, who is a pusher of the big lie and a conspiracy theorist, was invited to speak in the Capitol by Representative Ann Kelly. To me, that's pretty egregious. And, you know, all these conspiracy theorists are getting a lot of press. Why isn't the other side getting more press? So I'm just gonna put that out there. Besides, hello, everyone.
Hi. Yes, and so I'm going to give you some homework, which is to look through the positions, both all 3, local, national, and state, and find a position which I know is there. Find a position that supports the advocacy that you want to see us do, and bring that to the January 27th meetings so that you can help guide us to take action.
Okay. And so I said I'm relatively new, but so I would just do that research on the League of Women Voters website.
Yeah, we've got
primarily.
There's a summary of the national positions. There's a link to it in the chat, and I bet you Goldman would be willing to put that in the chat again. And that's a 6-page summary. So that might be, you could look there. And then the positions, our local positions are also, those are on our website and they're under our work and league positions. And that's also about a 6-page document. So it's not a ton of digging that you have to do.
The link is in the chat, and
okay, thank you. And the entire document is also on the website under league positions. You actually have to click the little purple book. And within that book is the summary. So the summary that we have the link for is just what I pulled out of the book. So there's actually a summary in the book too. So you don't if you don't have this link, you don't have to read the whole book. Yeah, yep. And then the state policies, or the state positions are in that same spot as well. So all
Okay.
3 of them are there. Yeah, and we'd love to have your input. Thank you.
Alrighty.
All right, Laura.
And if you missed it, Lorraine, welcome and thank you for coming on the meeting and seeing why you joined the league. If you missed it, we had a fantastic monthly meeting recently, all on disinformation and how to deal with the disinformation, how to try and combat the disinformation. And our monthly meetings are recorded so that if you didn't have a chance to attend, you can go back and watch those meetings. So there's really good information. It was probably one of our most informative meetings.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I
I will look at that. I did miss it, but thank you. That will be good.
Yeah, and we don't want you to think that, homework isn't punishment. Homework is a way to give you information. So
no, I don't feel like I'm being punished.
Yeah. It's definitely so that we can help answer your concerns and questions.
Okay, thank you, Laura.
It's a meeting worth watching for sure. And there are a couple of groups that are doing some real work, groups that we can work with, that are nonpartisan, that we can work with, groups that are doing some real on the ground work to combat disinformation. Yep. Alice?
I just want to say that the importance of the studies is that we look at things in general and not get too narrow. And so, Anne, to your question about health and women's health, reproductive health, I think that we can be proud that in the national position, it says that the league supports every U.S. resident should have access to basic level of care that includes prevention of disease, health promotion, and education, primary care, including prenatal and reproductive health, long-term care, et cetera, et cetera. So it's there. So we don't have to do new work if something's already there. And in some cases, I think with paid leave, maybe there will be a general connection of that to another existing policy, but we don't need to redo work that's been done, even though it's general.
Right. And my proposal would be to actually not to restudy that, of course, but to encourage national to make that a priority, in addition to the campaign that that the board has proposed. So Cheryl Eufinger, I saw your hand up a while ago, but then now it's down. So do you still
okay. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I can't see the little microphone. Anyway, I realize our core membership live in Kansas City, primarily in Jackson County, but there are a bunch of us that do not live in Kansas City, one of the 3 counties. So in thinking of, program planning that apply to all our members, I'm curious as to the percentage of our membership that do live in Kansas City. Does anybody know?
Oh, so you were
looking. My question is, how many of our members, what percentage live in Kansas City?
That would be a question for membership, and we might have to answer that later. I don't know if Laura can find that. Nope, we'll have to answer that later.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have that at my fingertips. I can look it up for you.
And you would
okay, good, thank you. Because there's got to be issues, like the issue on the council members and so on. That's important, but it's not relevant to me because I live in North Kansas City, or to somebody living in Independence, et cetera, et cetera. So right. I'm thinking of issues that might apply to everybody.
Right. Well, absolutely. And I actually only brought that up as an example for why we do this program planning. It's
I
not,
understand that. Yeah.
Yep.
I think the more important question is less about our members and more about the population we serve. And we serve Jackson County, Clay County, and Platte County.
Mhm.
Only about 30% of the population and voters amongst those four, there's 4 election boards in those 3 counties because Jackson has 2. Only
Yeah.
30% of the voters live within the Kansas City, Missouri election board territory. About 35% live in eastern Jackson County in that election board territory, and the other 35% live in Clay and Platte County. And we have quite a few members in Platte County, not as many in Clay County, but
Mhm.
part of the reason we don't have so many members in these areas is because we don't really do much to serve those areas.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
unless we as an organization start serving those areas, I don't see that changing.
Mhm.
I agree. I've lived in Clay County since 1973, most of the time in Kansas City, but now
And-
North Kansas City. And I asked people, would you like to join the league? And they investigate and say, well, it seems to be Jackson County, maybe the Country Club Plaza area is the perception.
And I saw in the chat, Greg said that part of Kansas City, Missouri is in Clay and Platte counties, which is
It
true.
is.
I think about 64% of Kansas City, Missouri is actually in Jackson County, and the rest is in
Mhm.
Clay and Platte counties. But when we talk about the Kansas City, Missouri Election Board, which is what a lot of things that the league has done, is things supporting the Kansas City Election Board area,
Yes,
that's only Jackson County in Kansas
Exactly.
City, Missouri.
yes.
So it's that combination of those two. We need to do more to serve the parts of Kansas City that aren't in Jackson County and the rest of the 3 counties that are not part of Kansas City.
Well,
Okay,
from
so
73 until 2009, I lived in Kansas City, Mo, and Clay County, and I could see Gladstone from my front porch. So all that background, and now I'm not served. I'm
Okay,
not
so
complaining, it's just I'm not served.
okay, so I am going to give the 2 of you some homework,
Okay.
along with, with all of us, of course, but I'm going to give the 2 of you some homework, which is to come on the 27th of January to the meetings with some action that you would like to see the league take in those counties, and let's put that on the table and let's make a change.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Carol Hunt.
I just have a quick question. The meeting on disinformation, was there a date on that? Will it be obvious if I go to the archives?
That was our November member meeting.
Okay, thank you. I
So
missed it.
yeah, it should be listed as November member meeting. I haven't been to YouTube for a while, but
Okay, thanks.
yeah, yep.
Um,
Evelyn.
Excuse me, Anne, was that any different than what was presented at the November state conference, in Sedalia?
Yes, it was a little bit different. It was the same group. We asked them to come and speak, but it was a little different. Yes. Evelyn, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. One kind of old notion. Back to program planning for the local, the state, and the national levels of the league. Relating to the state level, there is a new state guide to state action for 21 to 23 that's not on our website, and that's probably because it hadn't been on the state website the last time I looked. But Anne, as president, you're going to have to ask Jean Dugan, for the electronic copy of the new guide to state action, which I'm sure you'll post on the Kansas City League website for everybody to look at.
I will. Thank you for letting me know.
It's
So
not,
we'll go down.
I already contacted Jean about that, and it's not on the website because it hasn't been finalized, Evelyn.
But
Oh.
I was given a copy of the final.
Well,
conference.
she sent it to me, but it's called draft.
At the fall conference, I was given the final copy by the committee.
Okay, well,
I'll check on that. Okay.
I'll give Jean a call too and see if I can
Yeah.
find out what's going
Very
on.
good. Relating to misinformation and disinformation, for if people will log into the Monday morning calls that Denise Lieberman holds for the Missouri Voter Protection Coalition, they'll hear more about misinformation, disinformation, probably find a link to presentations that have been done. Marlon Grants did another short presentation at the vigil, the state vigil.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, thank you for promoting that. Yep. The Monday morning call happens at 10 o'clock and it's the Missouri Voter Protection Coalition. And there's just a wealth of information at those meetings, and between 75 and 100 people show up for those meetings from all over the state. So I encourage all of us to attend if you can, and you can send me an email later if you need the link to that. Okay, if we have any other quick questions about programming, if not, I'm going to move on to letting us hear about what the committees have been up to for the last year. And so just a kind of brief committee report from everybody. And I will start, not as a committee chair, but I want to shout out to all the people who have been on the news or have been on the radio or been in the newspaper this year. We've gotten out there. We've been talking to the press, to the media a bunch. So thank you so much. We've had a letter to the editor written by Greg Woodhams. We've had an op-ed written by Marion Lindsay. We've had interviews on KCUR and KKFI. We've had a couple of different members on Radioactive, the radio show on KKFI. So thank you to all the people who've been communicating with the world through media. Appreciate that very much. And I'm going to segue from that to letting Judy Ann Goldberg talk about what social media has been doing this year. And she sent me something to share. So I'm going to do my best to pull that up. Forgive me, Judy Ann, I had everything else ready to go, but do you want to start clocking?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, give me a second. I had, oops, that's the wrong one. Had quite several things to get ready on my screen. My screen was a little cluttered for this. So I'm going to vamp actually. Judy Ann, I will vamp and see if I can find that. There it is.
Yay.
I found it, and I am now going to share my screen. Boom.
All right. Thank you, Anne. Great. And thanks, everyone. It's great to see everyone and be here, start the year off with a lot of energy. The social media team in 2021 had a great year of success, and that's all in thanks to the dedication and creativity of our active and amazing team, Wendy, Katie, Terry, Janelle. And we're small but scrappy. We got a lot of posts down and they looked beautiful. They got messages out. They celebrated voting. They celebrated celebrations. They pulled a lot of people in. We had many more followers in 2021. We had increased actions across our platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you're not signed up for them, please go, LWVKC. We drove higher engagement in our year-over-year report. Our best performing post, as we were just discussing on Facebook, was on dis and misinformation. We had quote cards. We had a lot of great design in place. Our accounts look fabulous, if I do say so myself, but it's really thanks to everyone who worked on this. Wendy, Katie, Janelle, the content providers and creators, and Terry helping to advise and make suggestions. So it was just a robust year. Everything grew. And we look forward to more, especially welcoming an intern from the Kansas City Art Institute. We just submitted the form for that yesterday and hope to have someone working with us, a talented graphic designer, by February 1st for the semester. So it was a great year. Again, please please follow along on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, if you're not already, and share the posts. Let your friends know these are great accounts to follow and important. Again, we share the news of our league, news from the National League, inspiration, true factual information, ways to dispel misinformation, and much more. So that's our report.
Thank you. And action to take too. They also post action to take. Yeah, thank you so much. You guys have been amazing. You say words I don't totally understand, and I think that's so great. So thank you very much. More media. Jim, if you would talk about the e-voter just for a moment.
Sure. The e-voter committee is very compact. It's Heather and myself. But I think we've done a pretty good job of getting the newsletter out on a regular basis, so it comes out twice a month, the Tuesday before the Saturday meetings, and then 2 weeks later. And so, twice a year we get a 3-week gap that we don't have to work. I really like that Heather's meet a member are going beautifully. I get to listen to her actually talk to the members. I have to do that as part of the vetting process, and she's very good. Those of you who've been interviewed, I think, will attest to the fact that she's very good at creating a good, safe environment for some good exploration of your personalities, and we hope to continue that as we move forward. We do have, as if those of you who've read the newsletter that came out Tuesday know, that we're looking for a letterhead. I gave you literally the extreme end of my creative talents when I created the one that you saw. I'm sure somebody can do much better. And so, but again, the deadline for that is the 31st. I want to get this. I want to get this in place by the time I'm publishing in February. So if you have those skills and you want to do something creative, by all means, please just send it to editor at League of Women Voters KC, and I will. If I have a whole lot of choices, it'll probably be Heather and I kind of sorting through them and choosing the one that we think is most representative of the league and the publication.
So Jim, I have a question. Do you accept submissions of articles from other members?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I try very hard because I do get a lot of information. There's some sort of regular, people like Dolores, who covers the legislature in Mary Lindsay, I know, sends me stuff quite a bit. There is the information submission form is the best way to get that stuff to me. I know you can certainly email me, and I try to be very responsive to that. But what we'd like to do, sort of in general, is to get away from it being dependent upon one person's email solving the problem. So the information form does a couple of things. First of all, it logs it into a database that we have, and so everybody, all the committee chairs and the board members and everybody can see that. But the other thing it does is that it also gives you the opportunity to not just notify me about something that you want in the e-voter, but at the same time send something to social media or send something to other. There's a list of places that it can go. So it really cuts down on your workload. You only have to do it once instead of sending out multiple emails or customizing things for me in social media and stuff like that. So, but by all means, if you have something that wants to go in, now I will say this: I do vet everything. So apologies to some of you if your stuff wasn't in. It probably meant that I could not verify it. I try to contact you and say, give me some more information or something that I can work with. But yeah, absolutely. If there's articles or things that you want published, I'd be more than happy to do it. I am concerned a little bit about the length of the e-voter. It's already, I think, pretty good size. And so sometimes what I will do, if you've got something lengthy to publish, I will publish a summary and hopefully something that draws a little excitement to it, and then a link to what you actually sent to me. And that way you can still get all of your stuff in without making the e-voter just this humongous thing that people don't read.
And what's the lead time that you're looking for on submissions? Of course, with the understanding that some stuff comes up in the legislature at the last moment.
Yep.
Sometimes that has to happen, but.
Yeah, I kind of prefer to get that to me by the Friday before the edition is going out. So and again, you can look at the calendar and see, the Tuesday before the meeting and then 2 weeks later. Obviously if you want to send it to me as soon as you get it, that's great. I try not to work on it at just the last minute, although sometimes that does happen more than I care for it to. But the earlier you send it to me, the more time I've got to get back and forth with you if there's any questions that I have or problems that if I can't find something, it gives you an opportunity to say, no, go look here. Okay.
All right, thank you so much for the beautiful e-voter. Yeah, it's so useful, and it goes out to it's a way for us to reach out to. One of the e-voters goes out to a big list, and then that's the one before our meeting. So we encourage people to come, and then the other one goes just to members so that we can share things that are just for us. So it's a great way for us to reach out, as well as a way for us to celebrate each other in that smaller one. So thank you so much, Jim.
One more note on that, since you did talk about the 2 different audiences, I do save the things that you send to me that are sort of league members in action, pictures of people doing voter registration and stuff like that. That one goes on the second one that just goes out to us. So if you sent something to me before the first one and it didn't show up, but it's something of that nature, it will show up in the next one.
Yeah, thank you. All right, tech. We've had a whole bunch of changes in our tech world. Dave, can you tell us a little bit about that? Did we lose Dave? Oh, you're on mute, Dave. Dave, you're the tech guy.
I thought I had. I don't mute myself all that often. So we meet the last Wednesday of each month. And I think we have 12 members, but we normally just have 5 or 6 that participate every month. I want to thank all my members who worked so hard to put the webpage together. Most of the heavy lifting was in 2020 when we got the whole thing put together in about 3 months. But things have settled down quite a bit now, but we have a number of items that we've been working on. Many of these were conceived earlier and not all were completed by the tech committee, but we participated in a lot of these items. We assisted a couple of the committees in getting their own page. The social committee has their own web page, and the Observer Corps kind of enhanced our page that way. All of the photo albums got organized, and we came up with a photo release process that was developed so that we have to get people's signature before we use their photos on the web page. We developed a database policy on how we can use the database. Google Workspace, which at one point was called G Suite, has been developed where emails have all been migrated over for committee chairs, and the Drive space was developed and organized. We have the ability to stream our monthly meetings to Facebook, and that was developed, and then we can record the presentations and post them to YouTube. The Google Forms has been recently developed, where we, I think Jim Calvert was instrumental on that, where we can add information to the web page and assist in gathering information for the e-voter, and to publicize events, and the suggestion box, and please use those, and that's how you can communicate with us. I think I've already mentioned the Google Workspace policy that was developed, including how to name accounts and how to structure the drive, and then the training sessions that were put together and mostly for the committee chairman on how to use the Google Workspace, how to share documents, and how to use their emails, and especially in when to use the Google Workspace versus when to use the web page to do things. Okay, we have this is just some statistics that came off of the page yesterday. Interestingly, we have 54 members who have not logged into the web page yet. A number of those are husbands, or sometimes if you have multiple logins, like a committee chair, maybe you never log in as a regular member anymore, but so some of those include that. This is interesting. An average of 700 visits were made to the web page every month in 2021, of which 335 actually logged in. So there was a lot of visits to the web page without logging in to get the, for members. So maybe there's a lot of non-members logging in and looking at our page.
That's good.
In the Google Workspace, we have about 35 accounts where each account relates pretty much to a committee chair or another major function. So I want to just end by saying, if you have things that you'd like to have posted, please use a suggestion form. And I'd like to encourage anyone who thinks they could contribute to our efforts to please just go to the committees and click, I want to join. We'd love to have you. So that's all I have. Thank you, Ann.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Yeah, you guys have done a ton. And you mentioned the suggestion box, which is different than the information submission form. I want to just a little shout out about the suggestion box. If you've got an idea for something that you might like to see us do that's sort of separate from program planning, drop it in the suggestion box. The reason that we are getting we hope are getting an intern is because one of our members made a connection at the Kansas City Art Institute and dropped it in the suggestion box. And it sat there for a couple of months, but then when I had some time, I followed up on it, and poof, we have the opportunity to have an intern. So use that suggestion box. We've got so many ideas, and it's tempting to just, give somebody a call and say, hey, I have this idea, but it's hard to capture it that way. So put it in the suggestion box. It's got about 4 questions on that form. So thank you, Dave. Excellent. You guys are amazing. Membership, Laura.
Hey, membership could possibly work with technology on finding out why those 54 people haven't logged in to or haven't been on the website yet. So we'll see if membership and technology can work together and figure that out.
Perhaps I can introduce you, Laura. Perhaps I can introduce you to the head of tech.
We were just laughing about that this morning, that maybe those 2 committees could work together and see if we could figure that out. Anyway, welcome to any new members who are on. As I said, Carol Boris, or Boris, I may not be pronouncing her last name correctly, just joined this week. 2 days ago, we had 57 new members in 2021. So that's about 1 a week, which is excellent. And we do anticipate that with this being another election year, that we'll start to see membership pick up again. When people go, I got to be involved, I've got to pay attention. We're really one of the groups that people gravitate to. And I will always make my plea We are our best ambassadors and recruiters. So please, every single one, we have 242 members as of this morning. 46 of those are household. We know that some of the other half of the household never get on the website, and there are some of those 54, but then some of our household groups, you know, both people are involved. We have 188 individuals, 4 lifetime and 4 student. So those 242 of us, we are the best ambassadors and recruiters for the league, and are really can speak out to, you know, our greatest priority right now, which is voting. And I'm going to speak to that in a moment. Because that's one of our best priorities, I'm going to not step on your toes, Mary Lindsay, but I'm going to speak to phone banking from noon to 2 today. I'm going to be on with another nonpartisan organization, Common Cause, and they are phone banking to try and get voters to contact their senators regarding passing the Freedom to Vote Act. So the very first submission in the chat today, I put in the link to Common Cause. And if you click on that or copy it and put it in your browser, you can sign up for phone banking. As I said, it's another nonpartisan organization. And, you know, I feel like Ann, I'm in fear for our democracy right now. So I talked to lots of people yesterday, and there are a lot of people out there who are also very concerned. And when you tell them you're the voter, you're the one that needs to speak up, I can patch you into your senator right now to tell them you want them to support the get that Freedom to Vote Act passed. They patch them right in. So once again, another nonpartisan organization, and that is the very first thing in our chat. And
Laura, you might repost that for people who joined late because it won't show up.
Okay, well, it should. I can see everything in the chat.
Yeah,
Yes,
but if somebody joins late, they don't see what was posted before they.
Okay, I will, before we leave today, I will repost that again in the chat then, because all it is your time. And I tell them, I said, I'm a gray-haired grandmother. I'm doing this for my children and grandchildren, and it's a great way to connect with people. Lastly, I'm supposed to talk about our book group. So, you know, the story on our book group is we had Josephine George come to speak to us, and she looked around and said, y'all got to start reading. And I was on my phone setting up our book group. Then we've been reading since August of 2019. We have 32 members in our book group. We read 5 titles in 19, 5 in 2020, 12 titles last year, and we have a whole new list this year of 12 new titles. We meet the 3rd Thursday of every month from 6:30 to 8. And we are actually now reaching out across committees. Anne has asked us to come up with summaries of the books that we've read that we think would appeal to the DEI committee. And so my book club members have been writing summaries, and I'm just about to pull that document together with all the summaries and send it off to Anne on Sunday. Because we've got a lot of titles that we think appeal directly to the DEI committee. So Dave looks at me sometimes like you're approaching your reading like homework, but no, I love that. I've got all these books piled up, and some of our best discussions have been with our league book group. All right, that's it. And I will happily repost that Common Cause link. I'm going to be phone banking right up until January 17th when they want to bring up the Freedom to Vote Act again in the Senate.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Laura. Thank you. Next, let us hear from Observer Corps, Donna.
Hey, thank you. I want to thank the committee. They've been very active. We just reactivated or increased our involvement in the Observer Corps starting January last year. And this group really has given us better understanding of our local government and the entities that we've observed. Who knew we would be observing at least 17 commissions and committees across our 4-county area? Of course, we're still looking for people to join us, either by observing a new entity or by joining someone who's currently observing, so you can have an apprenticeship. For example, Sharon Hannon is helping Joe Holt with the Jackson County Election Board. Her goal is, after she feels more comfortable, that she'll start observing the independent city council. I always want our observers to observe something that they have a personal interest in, so we have flexibilities. And observers do just that. They observe, they don't participate in the meeting. However, they are able to give the board and the advocacy committee heads up about issues of concern. I will put a list of the entities we are observing in the chat. We will be starting to share a quarterly report through the e-voter that Joe Holt has volunteered to help us with. So you will be learning how the Jackson County Election Board is experiencing some harassment. You'll see how the Parkville City aldermen are reinstating an ethics commission because of the issues with their mayor. We wouldn't have known about this within the league if we hadn't someone observing. Our goal is to see that all entities are observing the Missouri Sunshine Law, and we are hoping during Sunshine Week in March, the 14th to 22nd, we hope to offer a special program with a speaker to share how the Sunshine Law works and invite the entities that we're working with. After seeing how transparent our Kansas City Redistricting Commission did and the questions that have come up about minority representation, we will want to observe the task force that may look at changing the number of council districts in Kansas City, if and when it is formed. Do you want to observe this? I'm throwing that out there. Kansas City is developing a racial equity task force. We will observe it when it starts functioning. We need observers as people's situation change. People do come and go. We need an observer for the Kansas City board. There's important decisions and discussions that are on the board, from keeping the students safe to spending rescue funds to dealing with the Missouri legislature trying to pass parent rights bills and CRT issues, critical race theory. So, and Kansas City's on the brink of full accreditation. That's exciting news that we'd see. We had someone who was watching Blue Springs that ended up pulling back, and Carol Hunt's doing a Parkville School District, but we have 13 or 14 school districts we could be watching if anyone's interested. It also, if you've read the newspaper about things that are going on in the land bank, which kind of comes under our housing position, we need to be watching that and all, because there's been lack of follow-up. Some people are just holding lots so that they can make money on it and not completing their contract. The league needs to be observing. I'm looking for a volunteer. Go to the website, sign up for this powerhouse of a committee, and we'll train you, or we'll let you be a partner with one of our other experienced observers, or we'll have you be a substitute, or if you want, just give me a call, I'll sign you up. Thank you. I will put this information on the web. I'm so proud of us, proud of the committee.
Me too. Thank you, Donna. And thank you too for putting in action our need to serve counties outside the Kansas City School Board, Kansas City Election Board, I mean. The Observer Corps has observers all over our different counties observing. So thank you so much. Excellent. Redistricting. Mary, do you have anything to say about redistricting? Have you done anything this year?
I have some things to say, but first I want to say, well, Laura, thank you for taking care of the phone banking aspect of the report. I had talked to Anne about doing that today, but thank you. You covered it very well. And as far as redistricting goes, for the committee, it's been a very difficult one because it's not one, and I think I've said this before in here, that it's not been an easy one for us to really get a toehold on as far as actions to take because of the nature of both the legislative process and the congressional process. I mean, but I will say one thing that did happen for sure was when the House and Senate redistricting commissions came to Kansas City on October 19th for the public hearings. We, the Kansas City League, were very, very well represented there, and including by committee members, but others as well. And there were like, I can't remember if it was 20 or 21 league members who attended one or both of the public hearings. And there were 6 league members who gave testimony in either one or both of the commission public hearings. And so that I really appreciated and I felt was significant. The current status, you all may know because you may just follow this yourselves, but by December 23rd, the state legislative commissions had to turn in their tentative map for each of the commissions. And the House could not come up with one map, though they did have agreement on 112 of the 163 districts. But with the remaining, which basically involves Kansas City, St. Louis, Columbia, and Springfield, with, well, what they did was they submitted a Democratic map and a Republican map. And really, there isn't a tremendous difference in how each of those are going, but they are being evaluated by the different software state-of-the-art places that are able to look at them in terms of partisan unfairness and that kind of thing. And while both of them have a huge amount of wasted votes, the nature of our state makes it hard not to have a lot of wasted votes because we have huge rural areas that are quite uniformly red, I'll say, and we have cities which are pretty darn blue. And so it's hard for there not to be, and if anybody doesn't know and wants to know what wasted votes are, I'm happy to get in touch with me. I'll talk with you and send you information about that. But so all the House Commission could come up with was, as I said, agreement on 112 of their districts. But they did, even though it's not in the Constitution, they submitted one plan with 2 different maps. And they're hoping that they can arrive at total agreement by the required, dead end date, which is January 23rd. I will say also that with both the House Commission and the Senate Commission, while people could attend either in person or through the WebEx like Zoom observation, it didn't really happen. What would happen at each of the meetings, all of their meetings, was the time was spent in a Republican caucus and a Democratic caucus, which were not open to the public. So all that we could observe were when they first got together, at a meeting and basically decided they were going to go into their separate conferences, caucuses, and then they would come back and talk about when they were going to meet again. So while, as you know, the league wants more than anything, or wants a great deal of transparency, we could go, but we couldn't really see. So, and then the Senate Commission could not even arrive at any agreement, and they didn't even submit, partisan maps. They submitted nothing, and they basically are not going to proceed. And so that will then have to go to the panel of 6 judges, appellate judges. That's what I was looking for. And but they don't really have to start until January 29th, because that is when, in theory, the Senate Commission would still be able to work. But we'll have to see what happens there. But they don't have any more meetings scheduled that are on the website, or so it looks like they've really shut down. The Senate Commission has, and so we'll see. Then on congressional redistricting, that of course is done by, it's just like any other bill that goes through the General Assembly. And ordinarily that would start by being introduced in the legislature by the House. But in this year instead, on the 30th of December, a joint announcement was made with both, showing that both the House and the Senate came up with agreement on a map, and it was difficult to be able to get it in a format where it can be evaluated, and so we're still kind of working on that. Although I don't think it's going to. They did comply with all of the basic rules that are in the Constitution, the state Constitution. But I will say that this coming Monday at noon, the House Committee on Elections will be talking about it, and people can observe that. And I mean, that will actually be observable. And on the 7th, all the members in the state received an email from the state. It's called the Legislative Bulletin, and the link and all for that is in there. Also, again, on this Monday, the House Commission, which is continuing to work on coming up with some kind of agreement, they, by the 23rd of January, they also will be having a meeting that will again be public. But as I said, the way they have gone is they're public, except then they separate in, the Democrats and Republicans have separate caucuses. This one might be different this Monday, and it's at 10 o'clock. And that is available on the state website. And again, the link for that is in that bulletin that just went out 2 days ago. But, contact me if you want to do either of those, but don't have links. I'm more than happy to give them to you. And I think that's everything.
Thank you so much, Mary. I know that's been a really frustrating dealing with all the redistricting process. And I am absolutely convinced that we made a difference in the representative redistricting for the state. I'm just convinced that they got as close to agreement as they did, that the maps were as close to, both sides have close maps. I'm just convinced that it's in part because of the efforts of you and the other people on the state redistricting committee. So thank you for slogging through all that frustration for us. We really appreciate it, and keeping us up to date and getting us all organized and riled up earlier this past year to show up.
And
So
it occurs to me, I didn't say one other action that people can still take, and that is you can still submit testimony through the portal on the state website, and it's the same link where you would get well, let me know if you want to do it. The best testimony is when people are very specific about where they live and their concerns about how that will go. But if you haven't figured that out yet, it's hard to do. But contact me if you're interested in submitting testimony, and whatever happens with both the Senate and the House, any testimony that gets submitted will, if they have to go to the panel of judges, it will all go. It will be all submitted together. And
it matters. Yep. All right. Thank you. Next on the list is DEI, but if it's okay with you, I'm going to jump to voter registration, because I know Becky has a commitment that's probably begun a few minutes ago. We're running a little long, so I'm going to let her jump ahead if that's all right. If you're still here, Becky.
I am.
All right. Thank you, Becky. Voter registration.
We have had a wonderful year, of course, reduced activity because of COVID. A lot of institutions don't respond to us that used to, and we are sure that there are guidelines in place because necessarily we have to do voter registration in conjunction with an event. If we do a standalone voter registration, it's just not very successful. So what I want to say for new people is that we generally visit high schools, colleges, universities, rallies and marches, and basically anywhere that we're invited that is a public event that we can go and register voters. We like to do the new citizen ceremonies down at the federal courthouse, but we have been restricted from doing so because of COVID for the last almost 2 years now. So that's really disappointing. One thing I do want to say is that this past year we had 2 very successful events. One was kind of an all-day voter registration of new citizens at Harrah's Casino on September 17th. We registered 117 brand new citizens as voters that day. And it was really inspiring and really wonderful. And it's the reason that it's just like I've heard people say before, it's just an injection of enthusiasm when you have all these people that are so excited about being new citizens. We hand them a little flag, we get them registered to vote, and they're off to their family party. It is one of the most wonderful things that we do. And the only reason we could do that one last year was because it was not at the federal courthouse. It was at Harrah's. And that was something the courthouse arranges. And I do have a courthouse contact that I keep in touch with every couple months and make sure that all the rules are still in place for us. Another thing that happened this past year was that in early December, Anne, our dear president, and I went to the Uptown Theater here in Kansas City, and we basically did get out the vote information distribution and quick blurbs before people went to the Patton Oswalt comedy special that was there at the Uptown. It was tons of fun. We should have had 4 or 6 people instead of just the 2, but it was my fault because I had forgotten that was going to be happening. And then at the last minute, when I realized it was, I called Anne and said help, and she did. So that was really, really fun. A very much registered to vote group. So we were handing out the league cards, the little business cards, and the Vote 411 cards like crazy. Those are very well received because it's just a little thing that you can put in your pocket or slip in your purse or even your cell phone pocket. So, and I think that thank you, Anne. And I think that all of our voter registration activities are things that I put on the website. So if you want to participate in voter registration, you need to log into the website and have your ability to get through and on there, because when you click on the volunteers tab, that's where the opportunities for voter registration will show up. I have a committee of way over 50 people, and an awful lot of these events, really anybody in the league could volunteer to help. Because if you're a resident of Missouri, you can help someone else or do the filling out of the registration form. So you don't have special qualifications. We have another form of registration called the affidavit that takes special training. That is not going to be available to us this year. So people who are already registrars, I have notified them that they are automatically extended through 2022. But to not cloud up the issue too much, I just want to say I really am still excited about registering voters. We had a huge year in 2018 and in 2020 because of big elections coming up. I think 2022 is going to be the same. I expect the pattern is usually social media really ramps up in the late summer. Schools get back in session, and then we just get calls like crazy. So anyone who's interested, please watch your email. Please make sure you know how to get through the volunteering tab on our website. And I will be contacting you. If you would like to have extra responsibility as far as voter registration, please contact me directly, because I've got all kinds of stuff that needs to get done. And I also want to announce publicly that I filled out 2 grant applications in, I think, October or November, and we received 2 grants from the national organization for a total of $2,500 to help register voters this year. So I can reimburse mileage. I'm going to buy another voter registration flag. I'm going to spend that money. So watch out, because we're gonna ramp up and go, and hopefully we'll get to go back to new citizen ceremonies, but that isn't up to me. So anyway, that's my report, and I look forward to a great year this year. And thanks to everybody who's helped register anyone or distribute all that good information about Vote 411 and how to get registered, how to check your registration, all those things.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. I'm going to add just 2 things to what Becky said. One is that we passed out 1,000 of those cards. So Becky, we're using some of that money to buy new cards.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem.
We ran out.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to say is that we are also seeking out voter registration opportunities. So if you have contacts in some of the neighborhoods that have been underserved by us, please get those contacts to Becky so that she can follow up and put together some voter registration drives. So we are transitioning a little bit from mostly working with organizations that contact us to also going out and seeking opportunities to register to vote elsewhere, but we need some help with that. So if you live up north, if you live in Eastern Jackson County, if you live in any area where we are underserved, or live or work or shop or goof off, whatever you do, if you've got some contacts, you've got some ideas about places we can go to register voters, please let Becky know so that we can extend our reach. So
especially, thank you, Anne. And especially I would like to say public high schools, the more contacts we can get, the better. I know they have staff turnover. They're very protective of their student bodies. So it's hard to get in there with a phone call or an email. So anybody who has direct connection with high schools, I would love to hear from you, because the more high school seniors we can reach, early registered voters tend to be lifetime voters. So just want to say that too. Thanks, Anne.
All right, thank you so much.
Oh, yeah.
Cindy, would you like to talk about DEI?
Yes, thank you. So Anne is actually my co-chair on this. So Anne, please, if I miss anything, jump in. You know, for those who are not familiar with DEI, there's a couple of things that we like to focus on. Of course, allyship in general, but really focusing on, Anne mentioned it in the very beginning, but uplifting those communities whose right to vote is, you know, often under siege. So underserved communities, low economic areas, LGBTQ, individuals with disability, you know, the list goes on. So we really are trying to use our own privileges to help, you know, expand their voices, right? So we do that through a lot of different ways, outreach, you know, to a lot of the community or community groups. A couple that have come to mind as I was looking at what we accomplished in 2021 are the NAACP, of course, the Guadalupe Center, an organization called the KCOGs, the list goes on, but those are a few most recently that we've had some really great conversations with. We also have done, for the committee members, obviously we have one meeting a month for business, and we've also been doing one a month for, you know, more kind of personal growth opportunities. I think, you know, it's a safe space where we can talk to each other about challenges and help each other grow also in the DEI space. So that's been really great as well. I think one of the biggest things as far as the league goes, outwardly facing, is we have now a DEI webpage, and it has a lot of really great resources. You should go check it out sometime if you haven't. We've got podcasts and books and videos for those of you who are really kind of looking to grow your own selves, I guess, for lack of a better word. And, you know, when we look at 2022, we're going to take those things that we've accomplished and really continue to blow them out. So speaking of the web page itself, we have already a lot of new content that we have queued up, ready to launch. We are also going to have coming out a minority-owned business directory for the world to reference. It's going to have everything from restaurants and coffee shops to home services and all of that. So we've really been working hard the last several months to get it robust enough to put on the DEI page as well. And I think we're going to have that ready to go here in the next couple months. We're just really kind of prettying it up at this point. And I think, you know, when we look at 2022 and what a big voting year it's going to be, I'm actually really excited about our committee, and I think the difference that we can make when it comes to 2022, because when we look across the country at a lot of the areas that flip seats or, you know, increase voter turnout, a lot of those areas were in the minority, underserved, you know, communities. So I think that our committee can really help the league make even a bigger difference in 2022. Member, you know, the member the voter registrations, those kind of things. So because of that, we're really going to focus on increasing our outreach to the local organizations. And we've already identified organizations in a lot of different categories to really foster the league's relationship with. So I'm super excited about that. So, you know, always looking for obviously new volunteers. Everybody's been great, you know, kind of helping me get up to speed because I am one of the new members of 2021. And, like I said, I think the thing that's most exciting is the difference that we're going to be able to make. So, did I miss anything, Ian, that you can think of?
No, it was perfect. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you so
and
much.
I got through it without screaming toddler in the back. So
You did. Thank you. Thank you. And I want to take just a second to thank everybody for hanging in there, because I know we're running long, and so we'll try to wrap it up as quickly as we can. But I'm going to let Pat Goodwin talk just a minute or two about the voter guide.
Thanks. And first of all, I'm going to take just 15 seconds to say how absolutely blown away I am by everything that has happened this year. It is just phenomenal. I'm just on the edge of my seat seeing what else we did. But anyway, back to Vote 411. Peg Prendergast and I are co-chairs of this subcommittee. And for new members, just a little bit of background on what Vote 411 is. You can get there. It's an online resource. So if you go to vote411.org, you can log in and kind of see what it's about. But it basically does two things. It's first, it's a portal to basic voting and election information by state. So you can go in and pretty much it's links. It would provide the links to our Secretary of State's office to find out about voting requirements and how to vote absentee and that kind of thing. What we are more involved with, though, is the second aspect of Vote 411. It's an online voter guide. So it allows a vote. We populate Vote 411 for voters in Clay, Platte, Jackson, and Cass counties. We include Cass counties in the voter guide. We populate it with all the races and the ballot issues for all the elections in the 4 counties. And that allows voters to go in, put their voting address, enter their voting address, and they will look at a sample ballot of what they will see on their ballot. They don't see, if you live in Grandview, you're not going to have to look at the Raytown mayor's race. And it also, we also can invite candidates to all the races to provide information on their background and their priorities. So voters are able to kind of look at what the candidate stands for and what they hope to accomplish. 2021 was pretty quiet after April. We had the local elections in April, and those are always big. They're just hundreds of races and more than hundreds of candidates. But after that was a pretty quiet year. So Peg and I did a little bit of housekeeping. We started looking for a new printer to print the voter guide because the Kansas City Star ceased printing operations here in Kansas City. So we've gotten 3 estimates for that, and we're ready to probably submit a recommendation to the board pretty quick. We've also kind of just tried to gather up all the documentation and stuff just to clean things up a little. 2022 will be much busier. There will be 3 elections. Again, the April election will be, municipal, school district, special district elections. It'll be very large. We'll start working on that probably the first part of February. If anybody's interested in working on that, we always need help contacting cities, towns, and school districts, contacting candidates to encourage them to respond to our invitation to participate in Vote 411, loading information onto Vote 411. So keep the voter guide Vote 411 subcommittee in mind if that sounds good to you. It would just start sometime in February and go through probably the middle of March. August 2nd will be the primary for the November election, and then November 8th is the general election. We are electing an open Senate seat since Senator Blunt is retiring. So we'll have all new candidates for that, but also, of course, congressional districts in the Missouri General Assembly. We will also be printing and distributing voter guides. We always need help, and membership has always really stepped up and done such a big help in distributing voter guides all over the 4 county areas. So you'll hear more information about that as the year goes forward. The other thing, just FYI, another thing that we'll be doing this year, since we are redistricting, we will have new districts. We will be finding new files. They're called Geographical Information System files. And that's what we load onto Vote 411, so that when a voter enters their address, they get their correct ballot. So that's just another little thing we'll be doing this year. Finally, if anybody is interested in learning more about Vote 411, Peg and I are going to do an overview session on Saturday, January 22nd at 11 o'clock in the morning. We're going to be at the Waldo Library in person. And as far as we know, they'll still be letting people do in-person meetings there. But we're also going to have a Zoom option. So look for more information about that in the e-voter that comes out on the 18th. We're going to be submitting an item to Jim to include in that. And thank you to everybody who's helped us over the years get the information out to voters in our region.
Thank you, Pat. And if you haven't checked out Vote 411, I use it every single time I vote. It's amazing. So thank you so much for all the work that you guys do.
Anne,
yes.
Pat did an excellent job, and she asked me for additional input this morning, and I told her she did a great job. But I just thought of one thing that with the voting, printing of the voter's guide this year, we always try to send out letters to people that might be willing to make a monetary donation for helping print the guide. We have had we've got about 4 or 5 different organizations that have donated in the past. We're losing one of those contacts this year because the person that really pushes them to donate is retiring. And so if anybody has any contacts for any businesses or individuals that might be willing to donate to helping print the voter guide, they'll get recognition in the voter's guide with their business name and stuff. But get that information to Pat and I, and that would be wonderful if we could get some additional contacts for printing the voter's guide.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you. Thank you, Peg. All right, so we're almost there. Speakers Bureau, Stacy.
Hello, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who is doing such great and hard work. We are an impressive group. So 2020 was the first year for our Speakers Bureau. And as you can imagine, our presentations focused primarily on the 19th Amendment Centennial and how to vote in the upcoming election, that crucial presidential election, a little on why vote, and a little on misinformation. I went to a couple of in-person meetings, but then most of the presentations were on Zoom, and that continued last year. However, our topic switched over to, again, as you might imagine, fair redistricting, thanks to Mary Lindsay out there promoting that, and voter protection suppression, and that's thanks to the dynamic duo of Donna Hoke and Evelyn Maddox. Our outreach this past year was to around 200 folks in person and via Zoom, which included our League State Fall Conference. And both of these topics were presented on KKFI, but we don't have the audience numbers from those presentations. Ann Calvert dusted off Margie Rich Creek's Voting Matters activity, and we took it on the road to a newly forming civic engagement group. So 2022 will be our 3rd year. And if you would like to join our committee, just go to the website and select committees in the middle of the blue banner. And then Speakers Bureau is under the Voter Education Committee.
All right, thank you. And last, Rita, bring us home.
The favorite topic of everybody, finances. I just want to let everybody know we are in good shape. However, we do have some major expenses coming up in 2022. Top one, the biggest expense is going to be the voter guide. So if you want to help support that effort, there already is actually on a way to donate and have your funding apply itself directly to the voter guide. So I just want to mention that going out. Our review's been done. We're up to date with all of our filing. So that's all done. And the next step is going to be to develop the budget for the next fiscal year. Our fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. So all of you committee chairs and subcommittee chairs will be getting a request from me to fill out your budgets for that time frame. I can give you what you've spent in the past, a report for what you've spent in the past, if you need that to help you help guide what you're going to need in the future. But since this is going to be a bigger voting year than last year was, I need everybody to think really seriously about where they want to spend their money and how much they're going to need. Definitely keep that in mind as you look for your goals for the year. Include that, everything from little tiny cards, as Becky was mentioning and Anne has mentioned, to banners, to the publication of the Vote 411 guide, to interns. So interns generally, I think we allocate $500 a year or space for an intern for however long they work. So if your committee feels that they can develop an internship overview and job description and have a place to go to look for an intern, have at it. Just let me know and let me know whether you need, make sure that goes in your budget so we don't have to keep going back to the board to allocate resources that have not been put in the budget. That's about all I want to say. Thank you all for your donations when you register during the month of December and any other time.
Yeah, we got some donations for end of year donations, didn't we?
Yes,
we
did.
We were more successful than I thought we would be.
Well, the board itself has decided to challenge itself to raise $2,500 for the year. And also, Anne did send out a holiday ask request, and we did get, I'm going to say about $1,500. It's not too late to donate to that fund. We were hoping our goal was the 2,500, but if we don't get it, we don't get it. Again, it's out there. It's on the donation page, and yeah, we still have. One of our challenges is filling that sub-chair position of fundraising. We don't have anybody in that position. We don't have anybody focusing on that topic. So not much gets done unless Anne likes to write a letter at holiday time.
and thank you to everybody who did donate. Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you. And yeah, my dream is to do fundraising, but not for another 7 years or so. But that's I'm headed there, but not yet.
Anytime,
so we need somebody to do it in the meantime. Yeah. All right. So we have again, we've run over by a half an hour. Thank you so much for your patience. I just want to send out a giant thank you to Pauline Testerman, Crystal Kemp, and Judy Ann Goldberg, who produced this meeting. So thank you so much, because you guys make it all run smoothly, and the only hiccups are when I can't share my screen. So thank you.
And can I say something real briefly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh no! Oh yeah! No, I'm sorry, Cheryl. Hang on. I think I'm going to say it for you because I skipped it. I skipped an item.
Yes,
I did also want to mention that next month, the next month's monthly meeting is on new bills introduced to the Missouri legislature, and Rachel Thompson and company are going to put that together for us all. And then in March, we're going to have an environmentally themed meeting that will be led by Cheryl Eufinger. And I bet that's what you were going to say, and I'm sorry.
Well, that's part of it, but something else. So you took care of my environmental sub-chair, which we had, I thought, a really good social justice environmental program in March last year. But as head of hospitality, unfortunately, we didn't meet in person, but in June when we had our training session at Second Presbyterian, I went back and threw out, unfortunately, gobs of perishable items. And then in October, Janelle and Anne and I met, and they did all the hard physical work of clearing out all of the league's possessions, hospitality possessions at Second Presbyterian. I now have in my apartment all of the hospitality stuff. So so anybody thinking we might still have something at Second Presbyterian, we don't. I have it. So, so I wanted everybody to know, and I don't want to step on Ann's toes, but there is a little committee looking at various places to meet in person whenever we do.
Oh, actually, thank you for that, because I forgot to include this on the agenda, and this will be the last thing, that we will not go back into person until May. That's sort of our target for now. I think we sent out results of the survey, was in the e-voter. So we didn't really talk about that today, but we're hoping, fingers crossed, that we don't have, version Zeta of this stupid COVID, and that we can go back to being in person in May, because I really hope so, because I miss you guys. So anyway, thank you for all your hard work. Thank you to the producers. Thank you to the leaders. Thank you to the volunteers. Thank you to all of you for showing up and listening to us talk for a long time. So thank you, and everybody have a wonderful afternoon. Stay warm and stay safe. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. And go Chiefs.
Oh, and go Chiefs. Right.
Oh,
I saw a
who are
sweatshirt
they?
or two
Yeah,
out there.
Margie has a great shirt on.
I know, I forget about sports.
And I'm wondering, do you think our democracy is going to be secure in 7 years? That's why you'll be able to switch over to fundraising.
Oh, I didn't mean to promise I'd be doing it here in this country.
You are on tape. You are recorded.
Yeah.
Just saying,
That's right.
We had to buy a new car on our vacation. I may just have to hop in it.
Oh no. So personal fundraising.
Yeah.
50% here, 50% there.
Yeah.
Bye,
I wrote the whole
everybody.
story.
Thanks.
I wrote it incorrectly in the chat about where to text the MOVPC, and I put 88688.
Yeah,
Really,
they got it corrected.
868. Okay. Oh,
Yeah. I think Sandy corrected it, and then somebody else verified it. So yeah.
Oh, good.
have to work on my
Thanks.
ADD.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. The dogs crack me up. They can tell when the meeting's almost over and they start to circle. All right. See you all later.
Bye.